Well, Tim, first off, I guess the first thing, how did this come about with Ted Siegel?
Yeah.
And I guess the second part of the question is why Houston?
Yeah, kind of one and the same. So Ted and I met through some business associates and connected about Houston directly, and we we actually have some funny childhood ties. He and I are from the same town, same high school. We didn't run in the same packs back then, but we had an opportunity to connect. And he shared with me this vision and plan and all the things that he was hoping to do with the Dash and Dynamo and in the city of Houston. And like, truth be told, since I've finished playing, I've talked to a bunch of groups that are either current owners or looking to get into ownership in the MLS, in the Premier League, in League One in France, and so many in between. And I advised and I counseled and I talked to them, and with the view that we're having a good chat about soccer, but there might be something there in terms of a partnership in the ownership group, and nothing ever really came to fruition. Not because they weren't good people; they all were. Just it didn't for one reason or another. And then I talked to Ted, and honestly, I jumped out of my seat. I was excited about the opportunity to help grow these organizations, both teams within the organization, um, the vision for football in Houston. Look, I also I had the cheat sheet too, right? So Ted talked to me about his plans and his visions for the club, but I also played with probably two or three, maybe four national team players who were dear friends of mine who think the sun rises and sets with the Houston organization and the city. So I was like, oh, I know great things about about these clubs. And then obviously on the women's side, probably three or four women that I've known to go through Houston and raved about it and talked about how much of a sleeping giant it was. So I was already kind of like, oh, there's some synergy here. And then I fell in love with the idea. And so that was, maybe 8 months ago, and then we've had conversations since.
Tim Howard, former U.S. men's national team coach. You can see him on, sorry, not coach, goalkeeper. By the way, one day we're going to do an interview just about your career and your upbringing, because I think from New Jersey, that would be a great thing to do. Um, as we go on here, and for somebody who might be a little skeptical out there and go, okay, Tim Howard's coming, Manchester United, NBC, all these amazing things. Um, how do you say to them that this is more than just PR?
Hmm. Well, there are skeptics out there. I've dealt with skepticism my whole career, and rightfully so. Um, yeah, I think today, and I mentioned this earlier. Today is a monumental day, a wonderful day for myself, and hopefully for the city of Houston. But there's miles to go, and I the best way to put it is I don't have a lot of time to do a lot of things. I'm an incredibly busy person by design and by nature. And one thing I'm certain of with my relationships in the business world is I'm either all in or I'm not, and I don't have time to like kind of hang out and just put my name to things for the sake of it, right? And so that's also part of you asked the question earlier, why Ted Siegel and why Houston? Because the timing was right. I was ready to put all of my energies into being a part of an organization and help build that. And it's a long term thing for me. It's not there's nothing short term about it. Yeah, of course, I think even and I wouldn't dare compare anybody to David Beckham. Certainly not myself. But when you look at what he's been able to do in Miami and draw attention to it, yeah, there's some surface level things going on, right, with the name and the glitz and the glamour, but there's some real football IQ there. There's some real experience, and I hope that, yeah, that it's great. I mean, I think being able to create the narrative and bring some more eyeballs and to Houston, both Dash and Dynamo, that's a big deal. That's a huge deal. And we're going to try and leverage that. But ultimately, my experience in the game and trying to lend that to the players, the staff at HQ, the ownership group, certainly the fans, and bridging that gap and creating those relationships or continuing to sustain those relationships. I'm all in, and like I said, I always say at the beginning, you don't have to trust what I say. I'll always back that up with actions and words and being present and consistent. So I've got no issue with that. Skepticism I think is good. I think people should be
Yeah, and I don't mean that in a
skeptical.
negative way, but we've
No, no,
had
no.
celebrity owners
Sure.
before, and people have sold us on, oh, okay, he's going to be sitting in meetings, and there's no way he's sitting in meetings. And I don't mean this in a negative way, but
No, no.
that's what people think out there also. So how often will you be in Houston,
Mhm.
and how much do you have to be here in order to really make a dent in this? Listen, people are
Mhm.
going to want to come see you. They're going to want to get your autograph. They're going to want to get a Howard jersey. I
Yeah.
get that. But
Mhm.
beyond that, how
Yep.
often will you be in Houston, and will you be out in the community? I mean, will you be out at parks? Will you touch people's hands in places other than the stadium?
Yeah. Well, those are great questions. I think when it comes to how often I'll be in Houston, it's going to be um, a lot in a short amount of time, and then maybe not for a while. It just might, it's all going to be schedule dependent. I think the great thing about this partnership for me is when you look at the Dash and the Dynamo, they play all over the country, and I'm all over the country, right? And so being able to activate my role as an owner in other markets, and being able to see the team and connect with the backroom staff, even if it's on the road. There's going to be a lot of me to go around, and in terms of meetings and calls, and yeah, that's a place where
You are a busy man. I've watched your
yeah.
career. It's pretty impressive. I thought there was two of you for a while there. It is
Sometimes I need
impressive.
to.
But let me see. Is this you are going to be more working with the competitive side, the Pat and the Ashers, as opposed to the front office?
I'm going to be advising and counseling the ownership group, and I think that's the starting point. Will I be on the phone with Pat and Asher when they want me to be, when they need me to be? Yeah, I'm coming at this as an ally for everyone, to try and help make the club better. And if that needs a ton of fixing, I'll do a ton of heavy lifting. If it needs some fluffing, I'll do that too. Like there's just yeah. When it comes to being in the community, I'm such a proponent for cultivating a fan base and a culture. A club can't be sustainable without that. I helped build, and I was a big part of building that club in Memphis. And I understand, I know that it's a USL level, but I understand the connectivity and culture it takes. I was an Evertonian. I still am for a lifetime, and I spent 10 amazing years playing in front of the best fans in the world. And I understand that they're the lifeblood of a club. Players come and go, owners come and go. The fans are the ones that are always the most important, and they have to be looked after. And I think that this ownership group has done a great job of that.
How does that translate, though? Playing at Manchester United and Everton to Houston, you see the content that comes through here. You saw what happened in the Copa America with the
Hmm.
crowds.
Hmm.
I heard you mention in the press
Yeah.
conference about the international fan. You grew up
Hmm.
in New Jersey. You know the ethnic
I know.
connection to the game. How do
Yeah.
you get that authentic fan to buy into the MLS product? Because I've always said the bar here in Houston has to be sellouts every game. There's soccer
Mhm.
fans from
Sure.
every corner of the globe here.
Yeah, yeah. Look, Houston's problem is America's problem, and it's been that way. It's been that way since I played for the Metro Stars. And anytime a big game came through Giant Stadium, it was sold out. And then here I am, a 22-year-old playing in front of 500 people. I get it. I've lived that. I've lived that for the last 25 years more than anybody. Um, that's the exciting part for me. I talked about it in the press conference. That's not even 1A on my agenda. It's one. I think that if we can crack that code in Houston, we can, we've done what most people seem to be impossible. There are football fans in our community of Houston. And how do you do it? I think you create a safe space for people and create loyalty. And you have to, I think when it gets down to football fans in your community, I think you have to give to them first. I don't think you can say, hey, we got this great product, come watch it. I think you have to get out in the community. You have to ask them and talk to them about what's important to them, what they need on a game day experience, what they need from us. That's the starting point, not the other way around. It can't be. And
But
so
but
yeah.
isn't that what the organization's doing? And with the knowledge that you're not going to be here and be able to do that, how are you going to do that? That's the question.
Yeah, I think it's a great point. I mean, I'll whether I'm here every single day, I don't think matters. I think I'm here and available every single day, and I'm part of all of the conversations. And when I can be and need to be, of course, I think that, like I said, getting into the community for me and finding out, like there's a it's complex, of course, but there's a simplicity to finding out, going to the local clubs and the pubs and the restaurants, and you all are soccer fans. You're not getting something. What is it you need to feel that you want to support this group? And there'll be very direct answers, right? And you start to get those answers, and you try and start to formulate a plan, and how can you reach those communities who are football fanatical. So I'm there. Like I said, I don't have the answer today. It's something that I've, long before I was a part of Houston, I was having these conversations over cocktails and coffee with friends who are knowledgeable about the game and understand the American soccer landscape. And these are not even debates. We're coming from the same side of the same argument, and we're trying to figure out how do we get this better. I'm currently doing that with friends of mine who operate and deal with Gotham FC. I mean, we're all dealing with the same problem, and it's something that is solvable, and we'll get there.
Tim Howard joining us, new owner, along with Ted Siegel of the Houston Dynamo. Everybody excited that there is a football man coming here with this reputation and this background. And I'm thinking, when I'm looking at you, Tim, I'm thinking of the Belgium game right now in the World Cup. That was still, to me, one of the most remarkable goalkeeping performances ever by a U.S. goalkeeper. How many saves was it that day again?
Thank you. I think it was 16. They're trying to take one off me, but if anyone asks me, I'm going to say 16.
Like a true goalkeeper, you want that extra one, though. That's always the way it works. You talked about the bridge of the fans. I mean, does that mean getting out in the community and basically mano a mano, touching their hands?
Mm-hmm. I think it does. I think that part is important, right? Because if you take a snapshot of what this community is, you can get a picture of what the larger city of Houston wants. Yeah, so I do. I think that's sitting with the supporters in the stands and drinking beers, as opposed to being up in the president's box, which I'll be doing both. I think that there's a side of that it's getting out into the local community, certainly into the youth soccer landscape, and into, like I said, pubs and restaurants, jobs. Finding out what backgrounds want, what people want from that experience. And so, to me, I think that's important. Yeah, I do. I think it's sitting down with, and look, it's a collective, right? You can't go out and speak to 20,000 people. That'd be an impossibility. But you can talk to important people within those communities, leaders within those communities, to find out exactly how you can service them. And so to me, yes, it is about doing that.
Is that something you'll do, is identify the key leaders in the youth soccer community, the adult community, and try and bend their ears?
Yeah, that's part of
Or let them bend your ear.
No, both. I mean, like I said,
Yeah.
I think part of the boots on the ground operation for me is to hear all sides of what's important and what is working, and drive that forward, and what isn't, and making that change. And that's where Ted Seal has been incredibly receptive. He listens, and I think that's a big thing. But for me, it is about, and I learned this post playing career. Someone asked me about what's the biggest thing I've learned in regards to ownership, and it's relationship building. You don't have to do that when you're a player. You just go on the field and perform, and then the chips will fall where they will. But I think when you build an organization, and you're trying to continue to better that organization, you have to build relationships across the organization, throughout the community. Like it's a singular thing. These fans don't support the team for 90 minutes on a Saturday. That this is their lifestyle, and so you have to tap into that.
Tim Howard joining us, new Dynamo owner investor, just announced earlier today. This is a pre-taped interview in the afternoon. Tim thankfully went back to his hotel to get on Zoom to do this, because I'm not capable of doing an interview off the phone. I always love seeing, like, DeMarcus Beasley go back in his community working with the team, like what you did in Memphis. It's great. And I always remembered at the early times of MLS, I'm like, when these guys all get through their careers,
Totally.
many of them are intelligent guys, and they're going to handle the big positions, and they're going to be people with a soccer background in these positions.
Yeah.
Memphis, just tell me about what's the most important thing you learned while running that club down there.
Yeah, look, I think when you talk about even what DeMarcus has been doing, and players of my generation who are in a position to make change and help run organizations, it's tough sledding. It's tough sledding. There's no easy answers. There's no easy solutions. This is sport. Sports will bring you the highest joys and it'll break your heart. I mean, look, in Memphis, I think the great thing for me, as a learning tool was, in the USL, you wear a lot of hats, particularly when you're starting an organization from the ground up. And that's the key answer to your question. We started an organization from the ground up, so we had nothing. And so when you said like you had nothing, you had nothing. Didn't have a name, didn't have colors, didn't know what people wanted. And so we had to, as an ownership group, physically go into the community, knock on doors, go into the local supporters pub, and which wasn't our supporters pub, by the way. It was a U.S. men's national team Arsenal supporters pub, and go in and say, hey, if there's a team in Memphis, what does that look like for you? What draws your attention? What do you enjoy? What would we do to keep you coming back? And so that was a huge starting point. I think that part, I learned was important. I also learned that culture within a team is important. Being able to have people understand that you have no divine right to win a football match, right? That there's going to be some highs and lows, but what brings you to work every day? What brings you? What continues to drive you? And that's the North Star has to be the crest and the club and everything about that. And culture is huge because players get injured, they get traded, they get drafted. A multitude of things happen. Things are going well, and then your coach gets fired. Whatever. There has to be a broader cause to a team, and I think we learned that, particularly in the USL, which for a long time was a mercenary league, right? You're getting guys on 1-year contracts, and who's the highest bidder, and so you're constantly having to you can't retain a ton of these players, so you're having to create a culture and a why, like why would you come to Memphis next season? And I think I learned that was incredibly important. I knew that was important as a player, but that's also on the inside. That's on the inside of a dressing room surrounded by 22 other guys, and you figure it out and with tough conversations. But on the broader scale on the outside, I think driving that culture home and creating something that's sustainable is huge.
Tim, can you go toe to toe with people in the front office about the vision of the club, the relevancy? Will you ask hard questions of people that are in the front office? And I say this respectfully, honestly.
Of course, yeah, and I think it's definitely respectful. I'm very comfortable having difficult conversations, and I think I say that not to be a rebel rouser, but I say that to, if everybody's pulling in the right direction, then there's no issues having difficult conversations. That's something that I feel like I've always done. I've prided myself on, and if look, having difficult conversations is the second step. The first step is building relationships, and once you do that, it's the same as on the field. When we're on the field hooting and hollering at each other, that's my brother. He loves me. I understand that. Now, he didn't say something really nice to me, but he was trying to get it. He was trying to get a reaction, and he was trying to drive the team forward. And there's no different. So building those relationships and then having hard conversations, to me, go hand in hand.
Yeah, because I think, Tim, what the people are thriving for is not a fictitious, great ex player, goalkeeper, celebrity, guy who's on the Premier League. They want to see a guy that comes in and does push the envelope with difficult questions and
Sure.
these types of conversations, so that we can make this team more relevant in an amazing soccer community. So I think people are bleeding out for that, and that type
Yeah.
of a leadership from a real person who's had
Mhm.
tremendous experience in the game at a
Mhm.
variety of levels. And again, this is not being disrespectful to the front office, but people in the front office don't have your background.
No, that's right. And I come into this eyes wide open. I'm completely aware that uh, the greater community, the fans want to see substance. That's I look. I wouldn't have gotten into this if it was just for fanfare. I'll continue to say that. I have no. I can lend my name to anything under the sun when it comes to soccer. That's not an issue for me. So, I was excited about the prospect of helping drive an organization forward, like you said, on many levels. The proof will be in the pudding. We'll see, but there will be hard conversations. There'll be great conversations, great ones. behind the scenes to try and, as you said, we're ultimately at the end of the day, we're in this to win. You don't get into sports for any other reason than to win and to be entertained. And by the way, we get entertained by winning. So I understand how that works.
I think that's music to the fan base's ears and my listeners as well. Tim Howard joining us here, Soccer Matters, ESPN 97.5, presented by the Daspit Law Firm. One or two more quick questions. Why did you ultimately leave the USL in Memphis, where you made some good inroads down there?
We did, yeah, we did it. But again, this was an opportunity that I couldn't turn down, and the exact conversation we're having, I gave a hell of a lot to Memphis, and I did it lovingly and joyfully, and there was some great times. But again, if taking on this endeavor would not have allowed for me to give the time to Memphis that it needs in those roles. And so ultimately I had to step back from that in order to take on this incredible challenge. But, I'm very proud. You can imagine anytime you are part of an organization, a sports organization, you hope to leave a legacy and you hope to do something you're proud of. And I mentioned to you before, a blank sheet of paper is what we started with, quite literally, and an idea. And the fact that we're able to build a perennial playoff contender, have some top players and top coaches come through our organization, it's a feather in our cap.
Well, Tim, listen, we really, really thank you a lot for making the effort to come on here. I know he went back to his hotel to do this Zoom interview. So that is incredibly commendable. Everybody is happy to hear from you. Excited that you're here. Now, are you and I getting on the plane to go get Jurgen Klopp now? Is that the plan here for the end of the day?
I would do it. I've already said I'd be happy to go to Spain. But yeah, we'll see.
Were you
We'll see
serious when you said that?
I mean, technically,
Yeah.
I could sit in front of
Because
Jurgen Klopp.
you know him well.
I can make a very compelling argument to Jurgen Klopp by his pool in Mallorca. I'm certain I can and could. But so whether I was serious or not, or whether it would actually happen, two different things. But of course, I'm always there to serve.
Thank you so much again, Tim, for coming on tonight. My listeners really appreciate it, and so do I.
Thanks. Look forward to seeing you again.
All right. That's the legendary Tim Howard.